Welcome back to the Elias Macko Show. Our next guest on the reporting yesterday from the Globe and Mail that Prime Minister Mark Carney and Ontario Premier Doug Ford have been talking behind the scenes of a plan for a spring federal election. Casual talk, but talk no less. Let's head over now to Robert Fife, Ottawa Bureau Chief of the Globe and Mail. Robert, thanks for joining us once again.
Good morning.
So why don't you tell our listeners a little bit more about your reporting, you and Laura Stone on the byline here. What have you two discovered on what's happening behind the scenes between Carney and Ford?
Well, we know that the Prime Minister and Premier Ford, who have a very good relationship, that the Prime Minister was seeking his advice, asking whether he should call an election or not. And the Premier told him, yes, it should. Right now, we have a minority government. It's a strong minority. There are 3 seats shy of a majority. And the Premier was saying that you need a majority mandate, particularly to deal with the uncertain economic times and the upcoming negotiations with Trump on CUSMA. The Prime Minister has publicly said he's not interested in an election, but the fact that he's actually talking to Premier Ford about the idea shows that it's at least in the back of his mind that he's considering doing so, and certainly the Conservatives are very concerned about it. That has resulted in a sea change in how Pierre Poilievre has dealt with the government. Before Christmas, they were holding up the budget implementation bill and other pieces of legislation. Since in January and now in February, after he had a meeting with the Prime Minister last week, they are now talking in negotiations to pass the budget implementation bill. They are asking for some changes in the legislation, not financially, but just because it's an omnibus bill as well. And it just shows you that the uncooperative Conservatives are being much more cooperative because guess what? The polls are dismal for the Conservatives. Mr. Carney has a 29% lead in personal popularity and preferred prime ministership over Mr. Poilievre, and the Liberals are now anywhere from 4 to 9 or 11%, each points ahead of the Conservatives. So this focuses the mind, so to speak.
Let me ask you on timeline here, because I remember the first press conference that the Prime Minister did after Davos. I believe it was on a Monday, the Monday after Davos. He did a press conference. He was asked, hey, you considering a spring election? Said no. Timeline-wise, has he actually, when did these discussions between Doug Ford happen? And is there a case to be made that, no, he's been thinking about a snap election for a while?
Well, I think he has been thinking about it for a while. These discussions took place at the First Minister's meeting, but there have also been phone calls, and I believe they also talked about it last week when the two of them met privately, where it was raised again. When the Prime Minister was asked on January 26th whether he would consider a snap election campaign, he sort of was baffled and went all over the place, and then finally got around to saying no, he wasn't considering it. He wants to focus on the government's agenda. But so look, it's not a surprise. They are considering it. They're ahead. He's got. He doesn't have a majority government. He'd like to get a majority government. Whether he calls an election or not, we'll have to wait and see. And certainly the Conservatives are concerned enough about it that they're not. They're trying to not give the Liberal government a reason to be able to go to the polls. I mean, he can't just call a snap election. He'd have to go to the Governor General with an explanation for why he wants to call an election campaign. And if the Conservatives are not blocking legislation, then what's the rationale for having an election?
Let me ask you about the rationale for the Doug Ford supporter. Of course, Doug Ford, a progressive Conservative, but seems to be very friendly with the Prime Minister. I know there was a bit of a schism over Chinese EVs. I don't know if that schism on just that particular issue continues, but let's talk about that interesting aspect, Doug Ford's support of Mark Carney.
Well, the people around him saying, well, he's not really supporting Mark Carney, he's just offering his advice. But look, Pierre Poilievre made a very big mistake when he became leader, he did not reach out at all. It took him 2 years. In fact, it was during the last election campaign that he actually reached out to talk to Doug Ford. And he had also told Conservative MPs during the last provincial election campaign in Ontario that they were not to help out on the Conservatives. So he's done everything he can to alienate Doug Ford, which is absolutely insane. Doug Ford is the most popular Conservative premier in the country. He's won 3 majority governments, and the polls show he would win a 4th one if an election was held today. So, Mr. Poilievre has got a lot of fence mending to do, and there is no love lost between with Doug Ford with Pierre Poilievre. And it's the same thing that happened with Tim Houston, the progressive Conservative premier in Nova Scotia. Poilievre ignored him, didn't want anything to do with him because he thought he wasn't right-wing enough. Nova Scotia returned Liberals. So there you go,
Let me ask you about, the latest developments in the Canada-U.S. relationship, and if that's the justification that Mark Carney will need to go to the Governor General. Of course, the stuff about the Gordie Howe Bridge and being able to tackle the American threat.
Yeah, look, I think that's a legitimate avenue for them to pursue if they decide to go to an election campaign. For sure, it would be on the Trump and on saying he needs a strong mandate to get these major economic projects through. I think that is clearly it. Look, I mean, every day Donald Trump's doing some crazy thing, and last night it was, we're going to not allow the Gordie Howe Bridge to open. Well, the Prime Minister called him today and said, we built the bridge, we paid for the bridge, it's jointly owned with the state of Michigan and the Canadian government. We used American steel as well as Canadian steel. I mean, this is a president who knows nothing about anything and just spouts off. And there's that bridge will be open. It's too important to the economic vitality of both countries. Mm-hmm. And you're seeing a very strong reaction in the United States from governors and U.S. senators, including Republican senators and congressmen and women, saying, look, this bridge is really important. Let's not play that kind of crazy game. So this will move over, blow out of the way, and he'll be on to some other irritant that he finds with Canada.
It's interesting, Robert, because I pulled up the statement, what a difference 9 years makes. I pulled up the statement from February 13th, 2017. It was a joint statement from Donald Trump and Justin Trudeau 9 years ago, almost to the day. And one of the lines in that joint statement, given our shared focus on infrastructure investments, we will encourage opportunities for companies in both countries to create jobs through those investments. In particular, we look forward to the expeditious completion of the Gordie Howe International Bridge, which will serve as a vital economic link between our two countries. Joint statement there between Trump and Trudeau just 9 years ago.
I'm sure the next demand he'll have is to name it the Donald Trump Bridge.
Yeah, I'm more worried about the end of hockey. That's what I'm more worried about. Robert, got to leave it there. I look forward always to reading your reporting in the Globe Mail. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Bye.
Robert Fife, Ottawa Bureau Chief over at the Globe and Mail.
I'm Dylan Playfair.
And I'm Tyler Smith.
We're putting loneliness in the penalty box by talking to some of our favorite athletes about the importance of friendship.
This is Bromance.
Bromance is brought to you by Charm Diamond Centers, proudly Canadian-owned and operated. Charm has been part of your love stories and bromances for over 50 years.
And you can find Bromance on the iHeartRadio network or wherever you get your podcasts.